Good evening and welcome to the Virtual Women's Club for the third week of Meet the Artist. My name is Augusta Supple and I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land we are all meeting on this evening is Aboriginal land. I'm calling in from the land of the Wongal and Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, which has been known only quite recently as Dulwich Hill in Sydney. I'd like to acknowledge that the traditional custodians and their connection to and care of country, which has existed for more 60,000 years, is essential to our cultural life. I acknowledge that this deep connection to country, to the waterways, to the birds, animals, plants, are celebrated through practices of culture, of song, of dance and storytelling. And I'd like to acknowledge that this country was never ceded. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Here we are inside the Virtual Women's Club this evening, and I'd like to thank our members and guests for joining us for this brand new initiative of the club, TWC Meets the Artist, aligning with the founder's vision of the Women's Club as a place to fulfill some of the needs of the intellectual and academic women by offering mental and artistic enjoyment. The Meet the Artist program is a part of the club's COVID-19 digital arts and cultural program developed by yours truly and my co-convener / co-conspirator, Virginia Gordon. This program was developed in response, as I said, to July 2021's COVID-19 lockdown in Sydney. And its aim is to celebrate women in the arts through providing paid opportunities to hear about their careers, practice and inspiration, to keep community and connection with like-minded people, and to essentially to keep women, thinking women, away from boredom. The Meet the Artist series takes place 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday and Friday nights from 6 o'clock to 6:30. And each week we have a different art form or theme, and it's an opportunity for members of the club and the broader public to get to know artists in our communities. Artists are asked to choose either to be in conversation with or deliver a Pecha Kucha style PowerPoint presentation as by way of introduction into their work. Tonight, we start our week of meeting theatre artists and performers with actor, performance maker, theatre educator and director, Valerie Berry. Valerie has worked with over 20 different theatre companies and has worked on several feature films, including Matrix Reloaded and TV shows such as the ABC's A Difficult Woman. Throughout her practice, Valerie has focused on collaborative and interdisciplinary processes. She has worked with CAP for Sydney Festival and Asia Topia with 2020 for Double Delicious, Yana Taylor leading is Following is Leading, Live Work Festivals 2020, National Theatre of Parramatta in its inaugural production in 2016 of Swallow, directed by Kate Champion, Curious Works, Polyglot Theatre, Theatre Contanka, Urban Theatre Projects, Belvoir, Branch Nebula, Performance Space, Sydney Theatre Company's Attempts on Her Life, directed by Benedict Andrews, and a show I really, truly loved, which she toured nationally, The Folding Wife, which I think also was made into a ABC radio play as well. Currently, Valerie is based in Adelaide and she's the Associate Artist of Act Now Theatre and works as a facilitator, coordinator, lead artist and performer for their Theatre of the Global Majority program. Good evening, Valerie, and thank you so much for joining us here this evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Augusta. Thank you, everybody. It's really lovely to be here.
So you've had such an interesting career. Like I rattled off some of the companies that you've worked for and some of the shows that you've worked on over a really interesting career. And before everyone jumped on, you'd said that you'd flown a little bit under the radar. Whereas for me, I've seen you in lots of different things, TV, film, short films, main stage theatre productions, independent work, contemporary performance and productions connected to community and place. Can you tell me, where did all of this begin for you and what drew you to performance and the art form of performing?
Good. I'll start with an acknowledgement because it kind of like connects. So that I am actually, I acknowledge that I'm in Ghana land and that the Ghana people are the traditional custodians of this land. always was, always will be First Nations land. Yes, so I began in Adelaide because I am actually South Australian. I grew up in a country town called Sijuna, which is 8 hours away. And I've always kind of performed like just, even when we were younger, my mom really encouraged us to do sort of poetry, declamation, and all that kind of stuff. But I never saw myself as an actor. And then my older brother, who is also in the arts, he was leading this youth group. It was a Filipino youth group, and a theatre company, Junction Theatre in Adelaide, in long time ago. But it was I'll tell you, it was in the 90s, and they were looking for Asian performers, especially women, and from Filipino backgrounds, and there weren't any or many. So my brother actually just said, you got to go because you have to represent. So I went to this audition, cold read, and I got the job. First ever, you could say professional job. And from that moment, I just got hooked in because it was also a very sort of socially conscious theater. And I felt like, oh, so theater and the arts is just more than, just entertainment. So it was actually a way of being able to kind of say something and be political, even though I never really look at myself as a political kind of person. But somehow a lot of things kind of got drawn to me, and they always had some kind of political kind of stand. So, but I really enjoyed it, and so that's what got me to. Everybody encouraged me to go and train. So I trained at the Centre for the Performing Arts in South Australia, which is AC Arts now. And then I went on from there.
Wow. And at what stage did you move to Sydney? Because
pretty much after graduating, because just before I finished, Sally Sussman, I don't know if you know her, she had this work, and Julie Jansen, they had this work, and they really needed a strong Asian performer, as what they sold it to me. And I read for them, and they really liked what I did with the work. And so we did it for the Sydney Asian Theatre Festival downstairs, Belvoir, called Lotus War. So that was my first ever one-woman show.
wow.
Yeah, and that's what drew me and took me to Sydney, really, because at that moment I was going where there was nothing in Adelaide really for Asian performers, people of color. So I knew that I had to go to the bigger city. So it was either Melbourne or Sydney, and that really kind of took me there. And then I just stayed. And only 5 years ago when I came back to Adelaide.
That's amazing, Valerie, because I guess I have to thank Sally Sussman for your gateway into Sydney and all of the work that you've done here. So you've kind of performed in all of the major theatre companies, and you've worked a lot in Western Sydney, and I've particularly loved a lot of the shows that you've done there. It's interesting that you say that you're not necessarily saw yourself as a political performer, because there's been a lot of work that's been very affecting that you've been in. I'm just wondering if you can tell us about some of your favorite shows you've been involved with, and what makes you say yes to a project.
Oh, look, it's an interesting one because, of course, when you first start off in the industry, you say yes to everything because that's, you have no choice really. You just want to work. But then once actually I got through I did some stuff with Benedict Andrews. I did some work with him, 3 works, in fact, with Sydney Theatre Company in the olden days. But he was he was actually a very experimental director at that time. So I was drawn into kind of physical, almost like a physical theater in a way, but still with that practice of, still text-based. But then when that kind of work dried up, the only way was to kind of go into performance making. And so, and then collaborating with people who were doing the same thing. And that sort of like took me to a different path. And that was like performance space was really one of the first home, if you like, in terms of where I found myself gravitating to. And of course, from there, then people found me. And so then places like, the Blacktown Art Center, Bankstown. So doing a lot of those work in Western Sydney then sort of started coming because it was all these sort of diverse people and diverse makers just wanted to make work together. But yeah, look, one of the first ones that I did was Speed Street. And that was really kind of great in a way because it was working with not just artists, but like communities. And we were there in Speed Street in Casula, actually the whole performing in the whole street with community and, professional artists. So that was like my first kind of foray into the Sydney contemporary scene, if you like, that really independent theater and working with communities. And that I felt that was amazing. But from those sort of connections, that's sort of how I started to work with places like Blacktown Art Center. That's and a lot of those connections also came from performance space, from a lot of those theater makers from there. But my Speed Street was one of my first. Yeah, I liked it because it really made me think of how you can affect a whole community and involve a whole community into an artwork.
Can you describe a little bit about that for us? Like how is that set up, and how do you work with a community when you're doing a performance? Can you tell us about the process?
Yeah, it was actually there was a lot of organization really from all from the company and from all sort of the artists, and also liaising with the communities. So there were a lot of sort of evening rehearsals, if you like. So it was really spread out to accommodate also some of, like we were working with some school kids as well. So we had to accommodate that they could only rehearse like in the afternoons or late afternoons or early evenings. So that was that. And it was kind of separate groups where you make your work and you wrote things in response to what was going on in the community. And Speed Street was really about opening up the whole street because it had really a bad reputation in terms of drugs, just kind of, that part of the community. They wanted to basically wash away those bad reputation and just open up that it was a diverse community and there were a lot of good things going on. So people actually opened up their apartments for us. We were performing in someone's balcony and and just the whole street where, empty car park, we were doing trolley dances there. So it was very open, like, and a lot of this contemporary making, you don't stick to a particular formula of telling a story. So you tell stories in very many ways. Through dance, through oral storytelling, and other kind of visual imagery. I think there might have, there was even like an on-site crash, like a car crash.
Wow.
Yeah, the whole show began with that actually. And then, so it was quite spectacular in a way, and probably kind of ahead of its time in some ways, because we're talking about like 90s here, I think. Yeah, late 90s. Yeah.
Wow.
So quite early on. So that was then one of my favorite sort of processes, just to be involved, not just as an artist, but also working with community, which is in some ways I've turned around and I do a fair bit of that these days as well.
Yeah, because you've had all of those times inside the theatres, I suppose, on lots of traditional stages as well. But I've seen you perform in outdoor and in flexible spaces, a whole range of different places. So
did you see Within and Without in Blacktown Art Center?
Yes, I did. Yes.
So that would be one of my favorite shows too, apart from, of course, The Folding Wife. That's always a special spot for me. But Within and Without as part of, the whole Pascal Berry and Anino collaboration within and without is also one of those shows with Deborah Pollard as well as part of our collaboration. Just as that special, I think it's the making of it is everyone's kind of equal and everyone contributes to the story and the storytelling. So for me, that's just part of why I love performing.
So now that you're a little bit further on in your career and you're not just having to say yes to everything to just start out, what if someone was saying, gee, we really want to get Valerie Berry to do this project, what are the kind of things that make you say yes now?
One of the things that kind of I have to kind of take is that, am I being asked for the right reason? So so is it just ticking a box? That's one of the things that I really kind of go, that's the first thing I look for. But then I also, but I also look at who's asking me, who are the people involved, and a lot of times it's that really, and you'll probably see when you read my CV or look at my work that I have collaborated with the same people quite numerous of times, only because you find that special connection in terms of making, and you start to get to know each other, like where where the balance is in all the skills that everybody has, and also sometimes the subject matter, like if it's really sort of interesting, and you're right when I say I'm not political, in that I don't normally just kind of raise the flag, but of course I have my own convictions and my own take on things. So of course that plays a lot of part in saying yes to certain projects. But yeah, mostly it's about the people. Actually, it's just yeah, it's about the people, who they are, and if I'm like everybody, I'm comfortable with them, and we are kind of, our thoughts align, and yeah, everything else kind of aligned with us.
That's amazing. So I guess this is the question that easily leads on from that comment, which is, you've also worked a lot with your brother Pascal Berry that you mentioned just earlier, who lots of people know. I think he's currently at the Art Gallery of New South Wales, but he was at the Biennale for a bit. And you guys collaborated on The Folding Wife, which is, I think it was one of the most affecting pieces of theatre that I'd seen. I think it was at Carriage Works. Is that right? And could you tell us a little bit about what it's like collaborating with a family member, particularly your brother, who clearly bullied you into being a performer? Is the process of making a little bit easier because he is your brother, or is there a bit of a brother-sister dynamic that can come through sometimes when you're working together?
Yeah, no, it's really, I find working with Pascal actually really easy. And I think probably because it's funny you say he bullied me. It's actually my older brother who kind of bullied me.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I have two. No, but we're all really kind of encouraging of each other, because 3 of us out of 4 are in the arts. So
there's a black sheep that's an accountant or something.
My sister is the black sheep. She's probably actually here right now.
Hi, sister.
Yeah, Roselle, she's the black sheep. And now we've always been supportive. And Pascal and I started actually in the Sydney Asian Theatre Festival. He wrote a lot of short pieces, Pascal, and I ended up doing them because he always thought that it was easy for him to write for me, and for some reason he also had he found it easier to write for women. It just maybe sort of a lot of our he looked up to a lot of all the maternal side, so because we lost our father quite early on, so our mom looked after us. So he always had this, thing about strong women, and so he wanted to write for me. So we did about. They were just short pieces, but we found that we have a very sort of. It was a natural way of working with each other, and probably easier for him because he knew the way that I spoke, sort of the rhythm, my rhythm. So in terms of writing, that came easily for him as well. But yeah, I find it easy to work with Pascal. It's unfortunate that he works so hard with with his work now that he doesn't write so much anymore. But that collaboration, especially with Anino and Deborah Pollard, was really a wonderful experience. It's because it was a very open experience in terms of everyone just kind of contributed from whatever skills that they had into this. And Pascal really didn't mind that his words sometimes it turned into sort of a visual thing rather than a text thing. So yeah, that was a very open collaborations. I found that such a pleasure, probably one of the best collaborations I've had.
Great. That's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And Pascal himself is such a lovely person. Whenever he's in a foyer or whenever I see you in a foyer, it's lovely to be able to just have a little moment to catch up and chat. Just really, really lovely. The most recent show that I think maybe I saw in Sydney, if that was your most recent show, was Double Delicious with Cup, which is the contemporary Asian Australian performance. Annette Chounois, who heads that up, who's also doing Asia Topa at the moment. I'm just wondering.
Asia.
Yeah, Asia, thank you. And Double Delicious was seriously delicious. Can you tell us a little bit about that show? A lot of the women's club members are also foodies as well as deep arty intellectuals. So can you just tell us a little bit about Double Delicious and what's happening at the moment with Carp as well?
Yeah, Double Delicious is really, so the premise is, you have 5 storytellers who are of Asian Australian background, and and from various places. You have Elizabeth Chong, who is a legend in terms of, she's just been around. She was one of the first Asian women on TV, with a cooking show. And then we've got Heather Jong, who's an expert in kimchi making. Of course, Benjamin Law and Raghav Handa, who's a dancer, performer, and then I'm also performing in it. And it's just really, Double Delicious is about sort of personal stories in connection to the food that is part of, is the inspiration for the stories, really. That may be a very, I remember the provocation was really more like, what's your favorite food? The first one was like, what's your favorite food, and what does that trigger in terms of personal history? We find a lot of the food that each individual actually chose has got a really, you get a personal window into parts of our lives, I guess, which some people may not have known before this. And then on top of that, by telling that personal connection to the story, you're able to taste a little bit of what that dish after the story is being told. So that's why it's called really Double Delicious, because you get a story plus you get the dish in connection to that story. Yeah. Afterwards.
It was just so amazing. It was sort of like there was an oral degustation going on, and then an actual devastation going on at the same time, and it was sort of such a beautiful thing to have a journey where something so personal as food, and also food often comes from mothers and parents and family, and that kind of anchor there. So it's deeply personal and also quite nurturing as well. So you're currently based in Adelaide. Thank you for being half an hour behind, and we're nearly at time. But you're currently based in Adelaide, where you're the associate artist of Act Now Theatre. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what sort of work you're doing with them at the moment?
Yeah, so Act Now Theatre, if no one's really aware of them, is a wonderful theatre company that's really it's a socially conscious theatre company. So a lot of our programs deal with like responding to racism. For example, we've got a First Nation Pathway program. I look after Theatre of Global Majority, which when we go on again, we basically have free workshops for BIPOC artists or community members who are just wanting to learn a new skill, whether that be theatre or just gaining confidence. So that's Theatre of the Global Majority, and we also have a queer youth group program, queer youth theatre program. So it's kind of filling that gap where a lot of companies don't cater for, and it's just amazing to sort of get that sense of not just sort of have a connection to theatre, but also have a real connection to community. So that's what Act Now kind of stands for. So as an associate artist, I basically like coordinate and be part of the programming, the decision making of our workshops, and also as part of my hat, I get to be a assistant director sometimes for a couple of our already sort of on running plays, and also still get to perform. So yeah, I'm loving it, and I'm learning a lot too, kind of behind the scenes, because I don't know anything about like producing, doing Excels and all that kind of stuff. So those are like my real weakness as an artist. I've never really sort of gone towards that sort of the back area, I suppose, if you think about it. But I really love dealing with people and connecting people to us and to our programs. So yeah, I love that part.
Oh, that's fabulous. I do have a question from one of the members here who has asked, what was your dish in Double Delicious? What did you do? I think it was a pork dish from memory. Is that right?
Yes, very good memory. It's pork adobo, which adobo is our we term as our national dish, I suppose. And it is quite a tasty dish with soy sauce, vinegar, mixed into it, some garlic, bay leaves. Yeah, it's quite a tasty dish.
It's quite good. So this leads into the last question, which is what's coming up for you next, and what should we keep on our radar that you'll be up to next?
Yeah, well, we talked about Double Delicious for CARP, and we're doing that for Oz Asia Festival. And obviously, I'm really thinking of all Sydney artists right now who are supposed to be coming for Oz Asia Festival. So with all the lockdowns, but I'm sure it's going to happen. So that's in October. And because Darren Yap, who originally directed it, is overseas at the moment. He's a very busy man. So I have been entrusted to direct the remount. So so I'm responsible for that this October. And also on top of that, as part of Oz Asia CARP has got the Artist Lab, which I'm also kind of lead artist, just being there to facilitate the week, which is a 5-day Artist Lab for Asian Australian artists here in South Australia. So that's quite a nice opportunity for the South Australian artists. And with just lots of things going on as associate artist, act now, because we got little tours like a racism show, Like Me Like You, and we have another show called Juma. It's touring, but of course, let's just hope because for the best, because with COVID, we just don't know what's
You just never know. That's
going
right.
on. But future-wise, I'm also working again with Sally Sassman, with Game of Islands, which is we're in development, and it's all about sort of the China Seas, what's going on there, and also sort of what our roles are as Australian, and also for me as a Filipino Australian, like how what I can contribute to that project. So we're just in development right now. So you'll see us in the future, hopefully.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, Valerie, and for coming into the Virtual Women's Club. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you. And I just wish you all the best for all of your projects. It's always wonderful to hear all of your projects and perspective. We're really lucky to have had you tell us a little bit about your practice tonight. So thank you.